which is a consulting firm specialized in higher education and research. And we have 4 main types of activity. So we have the strategy part, the executive search, quality and accreditation, which is my department, and information and data. And for today, it is my great pleasure to welcome Benjamin. I will let you introduce yourself quickly. Please don't do the whole CV thing, okay? Because we don't have 2 hours.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, Mélanie. I see quite a few friendly faces in the audience, so it's always good to talk to everybody. My name is Benjamin Stevenin. I represent today Times Higher Education. I work with them as a Director of Business School Solution Partnership. And we are trying to build specific solutions for the business school community. And I'll be delighted to have this discussion with Mélanie and with the audience to answer all of the potential questions you have.
Thank you. And I'm Mélanie Cadart. I'm the Director of HEADway Quality and Accreditation. So I will stop sharing my screen because it's going to be more of a conversation than actually a presentation. Okay, so feel free to turn on your camera and keep your mic off at the moment. If you have any questions or comments, you can raise your hand. You can use the conversation feature to ask anything, and we'll try to answer. So this is more of a conversation. So indeed, we have many.
Bon appétit to Adam, because I can see that he's eating tofu in Switzerland over there.
Exactly. So enjoy your lunch for those of you who are still eating. I know that some of the cameras are turned off exactly for that reason. So Ben, our subject today is to talk about managing an institution's reputation. Now, when we talk about reputations, one of the first things that we think of are rankings, because it's an easy way to know where a school stands, and it's one of the major decision levers for students when they're trying to look for a school. But it goes beyond that. So I think we should actually talk about the different elements that can contribute to a school's reputation.
I think there is a misconception when you talk about reputation. Reputation quite often is linked to visibility, and the ranking is all about having this visibility. But when I think about reputation, there is reputation is really a 360 of the school. You will start with the academic excellence. You will go toward the reputation for the alumni and the success that the alumni have, and being able to actually showcase how the school is doing a fantastic job. With the alumni, you will have the notion of employer perception, making sure that the employer know that you exist and that the school has a reputation. You have the notion of research, all of that linked to the brand of the school. And you can see at the moment that a lot of schools in Europe are creating like director of the brand in order to kind of having this complete 360 vision of the school and what they stand for. So when we talk about reputation, reputation is really broad. And then most people will talk about accreditation and ranking, which is part of the reputation for sure. But I think reputation is way broader than just putting it as ranking. And for me, when I looked at accreditation and ranking, and that's something that I wrote a few years ago, it was trying to make an example, and we were using a nightclub example where you always want to be visible. So if you want to be visible, the first thing is you're going to want to enter in the club. And entering in the club is accreditation. You're part of a family. You belong to a club of schools that are at the same level, same quality principle that you have. And once you are in the club, then you want to be in the VIP section of the club and being super visible. And the VIP section of the club is being in the Financial Times ranking when it comes to business school, like being one of the top 100 school in the world.
I think there's also something else to consider here, because here we're talking globally, like a global reputation and global visibility, but reputation can also happen more locally or regionally. And maybe their schools have things to put forward in their way of communicating. So I think marketing plays a big role also of what you want to show to your stakeholders and how you communicate about it.
That's for sure. That the impact of the business school, depending of the mission that they have, might be more local than global. More and more schools are using actually the global local in order to say that they have a foot in each side of the field. The problem is schools are fighting for students, so they need to become global. If you look at, I think most of the participants are coming from Europe. So in Europe, we have a decline of population because we have a decline of population. A school like Mélanie is, for the one that don't know, she's based in the lovely south of Champagne region, where they make some quite good
The
sparkling
best
wine.
champagne.
Sparkling wine, and the fact is, if you want to, if you have a local school, well, they will attract the local talent, but you need to know that the local talents are going to start looking also for maybe a bit north. You have Reims, so they might look at Neoma. A bit south, you have Lyon. You have plenty of really good business school in Lyon. You have Dijon. You have Paris. So the problem is the local is no more, because all of the other schools are trying to actually penetrate those students population. So schools need to be visible. I think I completely agree with you that you need to be visible. You need to play the marketing card, but you need to actually showcase something that the school is going to be interested in. I was speaking yesterday with a school in the Nordic, and the dean just arrived in the school, and his first question was like, Ben, what do you think of the city where we are in? And my answer is like, well, nobody know where you are. But it's the same with some leading schools. Like, if you look at INSEAD is in Fontainebleau. If I ask a lot of people where Fontainebleau is, they have absolutely no clue to put it in the map. But the people are willing to go because it's excellence. So being able to actually showcase the excellence, being able to do the proper marketing, to showcase the program that you have, the strengths that you have. So it's all about this brand perception and maybe the program that the school is going to put forward. So the reputation, I think, goes into so many different areas that it's key for the school to be able to define where they want and how they want to be perceived in the market.
So it all comes down to mission and strategy, basically.
Yes.
Defining who you are, defining your unique selling points, and having leadership and vision also to take your school there, because there are some small schools, and honestly, we work with a lot of different schools, small ones, big ones, not ranked, highly ranked. And sometimes even the smaller schools, as long as they have leadership and ambition, they manage to salvage their reputation, even though they're not ranked. So this is why this whole matter about ranking is really important, because when we talk about reputation, a lot of people, like you said at the beginning, think accreditation, rankings, but it goes beyond that. And the small things that you might have in your school contribute to your general reputation. And that can also come to how specific you are in a discipline, or whether it's broad discipline or a niche discipline, and how people can recognize you as being an expert of that area.
But you have like, I think you could identify three types of schools. You have like, let's say the tier one schools, the one that everybody know. You have the mid market, and then you have the smaller school. For me, the smaller school are the one that are more the trailblazer, because they can change. They can change quickly. They don't have the impact. The big school, it's harder to make move, and the mid market, you have so much pressure by the peers to be in the ranking, to be in the accreditation, that actually you're going to try to fit into a model that make you maybe not so different. So if you look at the schools at the moment, and the business schools are quite like that, some schools, once they become accredited, won't change too much, where smaller schools that are not yet accredited are going to make a lot more change, are going to be way more agile than the rest of the market. So it's quite interesting to look at that. And I think schools should be agile and should be like, the reputation of agility is a good one. We're changing, the market is shifting. More and more, the students are going to be less and less interested with the traditional degree granting programs. You're going to go for, like, I was last week in Dubai, and they are talking about something like a la carte program, where the students can just like come, pick one course, get back, and maybe the students will graduate after 15 years, but after 15 years they have enough credit, they will be able to graduate. It's also about how can you make sure that you have the proper skill set. The skill sets are evolving so fast that today we don't know the skill set that the students will need in 1, 2, like even less than 5 to 10 year time. So being able to actually offer this different kind of curriculum for the students is critical. But it's all about the reputation, because if the students know that this school exists, it's a good school, and that they can go and pick specific skill sets in that school, then it's going to be a way for them to be visible. The biggest issue is that there is supposedly, based on ASCSB numbers, there is 16,000 business school in the world. Out of the 16,000 business school, a bit over 1,000 are accredited by ACSB. EFMD are accrediting between EFMDA and EQUIS 400 to 500, and AMBA has 300. So, and most of the school are the same. So let's say that with ASCSB and a few sparkle on top, we are at 1,200 schools in the world that are accredited by the 3 leading accreditation. So that's less than 10% of the institutions in the world that are accredited. And out of these 1,200 schools, only 100 are in the FT ranking, meaning that we are talking about, again, a small number. So 1%. The global reputation of the schools, if you're trying to play the same card as everybody else is not St. Gallen. Thanks, Adam. So they need to be able to find a different way to be visible, to showcase the impact, because St. Gallen has a worldwide impact. Maybe there are smaller schools in Senegal, in Algeria, in Morocco that are going to have a tremendous impact locally, and that's what they're good for. So how can we actually help the schools to showcase their reputation and to give them access to maybe partnership with St. Gallen or other schools? And that is what is really key at the moment, is finding a way for the sector as a whole to become more visible, to get a better reputation, and to get more students, because that's what they're looking for.
Yes, and I think, because when you're talking about this, I think of a French school that we're working with. It's not, I'm not sure it's ranked anywhere. It has the national recognitions, but it has no trouble at all recruiting students. Actually, it's been growing for the past 5 years, quite amazingly. What they're doing exceptionally well is pedagogy. And they have found a way to communicate that and be visible. So I'm going back to talking about that marketing aspect, because you might not be visible globally, or even having difficulties being visible nationally, but still be able to attract, because there is one thing that you do particularly well. And the visibility that you're talking about giving the chance of all those schools that are not in rankings, because you're right, it's like a very small percentage, 1.2%, it's nothing. And you were telling me about something that you're working on with THE and Poets and Quants, and maybe you could talk about this, because I think it's interesting for a lot of schools here.
Well, it came from the perception of Times Higher Education doesn't have a business school ranking, and like I think the idea is not to create new rankings. Schools already have enough rankings. We have Kedge in the discussion. I'm going to use Kedge as an example. Kedge is doing a lot of FT ranking. They're submitting data to all of the French national rankings. So at the end of the day, I think you're submitting data to 12 or 14 rankings. So adding one ranking, yes, sure. But I think if you can avoid having to submit data to one more, you'll be happy. So when you go for ranking, what you go for is visibility. And so the idea was, how can we create a tool that bring visibility to schools? And that's what we have launched. We did a soft launch a few weeks ago of the THE Business School Register. And the THE Business School Register is all about taking into account how we can leverage the visibility that Times Higher Education offer without having a ranking. So the visibility that THE offer is, we have THE is different brands. You have THE, you have Poets and Quants, you have Inside Higher Ed, and others, which is roughly between 60 to 80 million unique visitors a year, out of which 50% are students. So how can we leverage this 50% of students and give visibility to those schools? So we decided to create a tool, which is called THE Business School Register. We ask 70 data points to the school to make sure that they do exist, that if a stakeholder, if a parents go on the website and look for the school, we want to make sure that it does exist and that it's not a crazy school in the middle of nowhere that their kids go to and really doesn't exist. But we wanted to go broader than the 1,000 schools that are accredited and ranked. So we've created a product that for a fee that we think is affordable for every school in the world, which is $2,000 US. All of the school can be visible. They will be visible because they would have a profile on both the THE website and the Poets and Quants website. What we realize is THE doesn't have many business schools because we don't have a ranking. We have 9 standalone business schools. One of them is a leading French school. And when I was speaking to them, they told me that 15% of their students are coming from the THE website. So it's quite a big number of their students. So we thought of a way to actually create profile for schools. So the objective is to give them this ability to be visible. We have created different tier schools. We have some of the leading schools in the world that are happy to be patron schools. The patron schools give some of their time. So we have schools that are giving some workshop on AI. We have schools that are giving workshop on anti-slavery. So really trying to speak to the school, saying, look, what are you keen on contributing to the community, and creating really this community of best practice in order to really bring the visibility for those schools. And our target audience was really schools that were outside of those 1,000. But I told you we did a soft launch, and at the moment we have 150 schools that are in. Most of them are the school that you already know that are ranked and accredited, because, well, to be able to add some visibility is key. But we also have some schools that are completely outside of the traditional process of ranking and accreditation.
So you were mentioning 3 tiers. You talked about the patrons.
So patron schools are like the school that are willing to give to the community. Then we have the premier school that are schools that are accredited. So any school that is AACSB, EQUIS, AMBA, BGA, or ACBSP, automatically we know they exist because they have been through a process of accreditation that is quite lengthy. So we know they do exist. And then you have the partner school, and the partner schools are schools that are not accredited anywhere. And we want to just make sure that they do exist.
I think it's a great idea because, well, participants here typically are from schools that would be from the patrons or premier categories, but I think it's great to kind of give visibility to smaller schools that maybe are not equipped to go after accreditation, so completely out of the ranking system. So I think it's a wonderful idea, and also it will open doors to collaborations among schools because they will be able to identify themselves, in the same group.
Well, that is the idea as well. Is if you go and want to find a partner in Africa at the moment, there is maybe 10 schools in the African continent that are ranked or accredited. Actually, accredited, because ranked there is less. So how can you find peer schools? So that was really our idea, is to find a way to help the school with transnational education, internationalization, finding proper partner schools, and that was one of the area that we wanted to push forward when we built the register.
Now, talking about collaborations and partnerships between institutions, do you think it's fair to consider that it contributes to a school's reputation, the type of schools that you're partnering with?
Of course. Of course, and you can see the limits at the moment. Is a lot of schools are going to want to only partner with schools that are in the same category as they are. So if you go, some schools that gain international accreditation, then might try to change a partnership to go for the schools that are also accredited by the same accrediting body. So it's evolving, it's changing, and of course you want to be seen as a member of the club, so you're going to only pick partners that are in the same kind of like reputation or level that you have, but that has a lot of limitation at the same time.
Especially for schools that are not accredited, because it's difficult to find, I use quote marks here, quality schools, meaning those that are recognized as such by being accredited. So for a school that's not accredited, to find a partner school that is accredited, it's becoming more and more difficult because accreditors kind of impose that rule, even though it's not always strongly said, it's kind of suggested. And it makes life easier for institutions to find accredited partners. So that's what schools are looking for, but when you're not accredited yet, it can be very difficult. So
it does, but also you can see, and I think the best example for that is some UK institutions that are not internationally accredited at the institution level, have tons of partnership with different parts of the world in order to quote unquote sell their diploma. When they go for an institutional accreditation, they have to harmonize, they have to clean their process. So you can find a few of some of the big schools that are not accredited because they don't want to actually cut those programs because they are quite profitable programs. So it's an interesting discussion with some of those schools in the UK. Like, you need to still make the money and you want to enter in a quality process. So you need to make sure that you are at a certain quality. So what you do with partnership in South Asia by selling your diploma left and right, maybe it doesn't go well with the accreditation body. So the schools are asking themselves some question. And that's why also, I think I know the school you were mentioning earlier in France, they are super profitable. Like in a market where at the moment the leading schools, like with some exception, are not like having huge profit margin. The small players have huge profit margin because they completely go outside and have the ability to maybe have a lower threshold in terms of ratio of faculty and students. They have other typology of research, so they can pay lower salary. Like there is things that smaller school can do that make them more agile, and because they are more agile, they are way more profitable. And I think that would be an interesting article, would be to compare. And just in France, when you look at the 30 French business school, looking at the one that are profitable, and you would have a surprise by saying that they're not the one in the top 10, but they are more the one in the bottom 30.
yes, now you have all the big schools wishing they were smaller.
I don't know if it's smaller. I think it's a question of agility. If you have a big faculty body, if you want to enter in the race with the other schools in the world, like you're a standalone French business school, how can you compare with a British university where maybe you are French? Like, let's take an example: medium French business school, 100 faculty body, 100 faculties, 8,000 students. In the UK, the average would be 200 to 250 faculty for half the number of students. So how can you compare two things that cannot compare one another? It's and the school need to produce, because again, you want to go for international ranking. International ranking, the key area is research. You want to be visible in your research. So there is ways about improving your research. You can play the game. Like, ranking is all about playing the game, and you can see it. And for the one that are not French, there was I actually advise you, I think it's still the case, but at least until last year, it was still the case. In the Shanghai ranking, if you go in economy for France, go and look at the top 10, top 5. You're going to have an interesting surprise. Like, you have schools that, like, why are they there? And the Dean of Research wrote an article about how they're playing the game. And for some school, it's a game. It's for sure that when the patrol arrive and the rest of the market see the game that you're playing, it's maybe deontologically speaking, it's not the proper thing to do, but some schools do play that game.
So it bears the question to smaller schools, because they also have issues about reputation, but maybe their reputation should not be global. And I keep going back and forth between those small schools and those larger schools. It's not the same game. And for smaller schools, the reputation maybe happens more locally, and maybe it's not a good strategy, because reputation has to do with strategy. Maybe it's not a good strategy for those schools to try and be global and be globally visible, because then they could lose that agility you're talking about.
That's for sure, but also it's a never-ending race. Like, you're comparing yourself between your peers. So you are a school, you have one accreditation, then your peer school get a second accreditation. So you're going to be like, oh, I want the second one. Then you go for the third one, and you see that they're ranked X times. So you want to be the same number of time. So at the end, like, I had this discussion with some deans of business school. They were like, when we go to student fairs, students don't know what the symbols stand for. So, the schools have ASCSB and Equus and AMBA, the Triple Crown, on their booth for these student fairs. And even if the students don't know, the students count and say like, oh, that school has 3, oh, that school only has 2. Does that mean that they're less good? So in a way, in order to attract the students, if your peer have them, like, you have peer pressure to go and get them, except if you, and I think the question is really good and just coming timely, except if you can showcase yourself as a niche player and having something completely different to offer. But it's how can you actually showcase your difference?
Exactly. Yes, and I think what you're talking about trying to match your peers, and it's always the lack of that is the most destructive for a school, and that hinders the reputation, because and especially it's the case in France, where we have this école de la CGE, grandes écoles, where there's this group, about 35 schools that are together, not exactly the same, but the schools that don't have any international accreditations, they are kind of excluded of the race. So you keep wanting more. And also, you have those new accreditations. So a few years back, BGA started, so trying to add something. And I remember the discussions in the work group, the quality and accreditation work group, everyone looking at each other like, is anyone going for BGA? Because they knew that if someone starts to go there, everyone will have to follow, because you don't want to be left behind with one less accreditation. So yes, that part.
The perfect example for that, Mélanie, would be what happened with Ed Universal a few years ago. Ed Universal, it's a rating mechanism that I'm sure a few of you are aware of. It was not taken seriously until the day that Cornell went on stage to get the award. The day Cornell went on stage, and the market was like, Cornell is taking it seriously? Like, maybe we should look into it. So the perception of the market is really important, and it's like, maybe you think there's no value, but if your peers are doing it, you're going to have like this peer pressure of going for it, and you only have a few schools that are willing to actually take the risk and say, look, our brand is strong enough. Like, a good example would be Stockholm School of Economics. Stockholm School of Economics only has Equus. Like, they're not interested in. Or last time I spoke to them, I don't know. We have ASCSB on the call, so I'm not going to make assumptions. But the last time I spoke to them, they were like, "Look, we're not interested. Like, one is sufficient. It get us entry into the Financial Times ranking. We don't need anything else. We know where we want to go. We want to talk to corporates in Sweden. Having multiple accreditation is not interesting to us. So it also, as you said, depends on the strategy that the school want to aim for."
And going back to Nathalie's comment, a about reputation for niche expertise, is that what I was mentioning earlier also, is how can you be different? And well, of course, Natalie, you're in a specialized school. So just by that, but what you teach, you're kind of different from this whole group here. But even within a management school group, you can be focusing on, well, the big thing in the early 2000 was entrepreneurship, and now it's ERS matters. Now it's AI. So how are you different, and how can you attract certain types of students, or even executive type of learners?
Well, I think it's. Let me give you another example. And sorry, the school is present, but so I wouldn't name them because I have to name the dean. I had a lunch with Adilson Borges, the dean of Rennes Business School or Rennes School of Business. And the way he's seeing it is completely different. He's approaching it. He's coming. He was in Neoma, then he moved to Carrefour and was leading their corporate university. And he's all about like, what kind of service, how can I appear to the students? Like, he's the only dean that I know that provided his WhatsApp number to all of the students of the school. And that was my first question, is like, how is that working? Like, how many WhatsApp do you get a day in order to like, and he's like, no, honestly, I have maybe one or two great conversation that I can pass them on to other people in the team. Like, it's, if you showcase like that the dean is there, that the dean care about the students, like you also have to remember that you're talking to stakeholders that might be students, that might be parents. If you're talking to stakeholders that are, and here again, we're more on the global than the local, but the global, if you have students coming from India, the parents would like to know that they can have access to the dean, they can ask the question, like having these kind of things. Or if you're going at the local, there's great schools that work with the Chamber of Commerce that goes, when you go to the city where the head office is, they know every single business owner, like, because they work for the business ownership of the city where they're based. And depending of the school and the strategy, you have so many ways to enhance the reputation. But it's for sure, you have to define if you want to be a global player or a local player, because the strategy is going to be completely different if you go for one or the other. But most schools today are not global or local, they're local. And so that need to actually have a strategy as well.
Yes, I'm actually glad you mentioning Adilson Borges, because I think the way he communicates on LinkedIn, and it comes back to my point on marketing and communication. What do you show to the world? And he strongly focuses on students, on the value of students, on student experience, and how accessible and close to student he is. And I think it makes a strong point for the school on that we were talking about niche, but it's also what's your focus in your communication. And I think focusing in your students and that proximity that you have with your students is also a great way to improve your reputation as a humane school, I guess, and a school that takes your students a step further. So
it's all about the human capital. But I think the second question from Natalie, or the comments from Natalie in the chat is quite interesting.
Yep.
Because EHL, Natalie is giving an example with EHL, École Hôtelière de Lausanne. But now EHL want to be a business school. So you're actually looking at a hospitality school that is becoming a management school. And if you look at the process and that they had for research, for example, it was a game changer for them. Like, going from hospitality to business, like, how do you actually move the research? So I think they had a clear vision of where they wanted to go. And I remember having this discussion with Ines Blal, the former dean, on the challenges that she had in the journey toward the objective that she had put to the school, and it was quite interesting. But I agree with her. What she's saying is that the human-centered experience of EHL, and that's why I think, like, I'm really glad that, for example, with EHL, the first year program, where they make it compulsory for their students to actually touch a bit about everything in hospitality. So they have to go, they have to serve at the restaurant, they have to know how to do the room, because, well, they are training the future leader of the hospitality sector, and having the future leader knowing how to clean a room and how to serve at the restaurant is really key. So, and I think it's really cool that they have left that in their curriculum, and I really appreciate the way they have evolved.
Nathalie, you want to react?
No, I just want to say thank you to Benjamin. Yeah, no, exactly. It was the vision of the dean, and we talked about the proximity of the dean. That might be one approach that a school has in terms of engaging with its students. For us, it was that the dean had a clear vision of where she wanted to bring the school, and that's continuing now. Yeah, there were some challenges. Some faculty were not necessarily on board. You have 125 now, 130 years of history as a hospitality school, and suddenly you put business school on the front door, and that ruffled some feathers. But it also was a clear vision, and it's helped us develop some strong partnerships and provide our expertise where we can. We don't pretend to be a Harvard Business School, and we want to partner with schools that where we can add value. So we're glad that slowly it's becoming recognized, but it's been a long journey. It's certainly been a long journey.
Yeah,
but you are the Harvard of hospitality.
Well, we like. I'll take that. I'll take that.
It's also taking a chance on your reputation, changing, when you're known for something, and kind of shifting like this. Big chance, yeah. So
it's a shift, but at the same time, if you look at the way they have built it through the year. Sorry, I'm going to talk a bit too much about you guys at EHL, Nathalie, but like before they had one, it's still something that exists today. They have created their own accreditation for hospitality program. So they are accrediting schools around the world in order to showcase that they are at a certain level because of this issue of how do we find partner. So they have created their international
certifying, yes.
Certifying, sorry. But they have their international campus, they have their certified schools with whom they work, and they have created their own network. So it's a network of best practice, and they are at the center. And because they wanted to penetrate another market, because a lot of business school has hospitality programs, so they're not the traditional hospitality schools like EHL and other schools. But in order to actually be able to partner with schools that are more business school with a hospitality program, and I know, for example, Nathalie, you have I think it's a dual program with Kedge on that, if I remember properly.
We used to.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you want to work with business school, you need to be on the same criteria. So they align themselves to what the market was looking, and I think in terms of reputation, it's really cool.
So we actually have a competing school for EHL in the audience. So maybe we can focus on Institut Life too, formerly Bocuse.
We can. I have a lot of stories as well.
Good ones?
Always.
You have a lot of stories about everyone here, I'm sure. Maybe keep them because you're going to get people scared. Thanks for the spotlight. I was kind of curious and wondering what reputation means to all of you here. If you want to, take the floor, speak up, or you can write it in the conversations. What is the major aspect of your school's reputation for you? So it gives Ben a chance to cough. So Ben is sick, actually. He's very nice being here today because he's not in his best shape.
Yeah, sorry, I got a flu, so thank you.
I appreciate the effort. So no one wants to speak up? Adam. Go ahead.
You're muted, Adam.
Yes, I was trying to push the wrong button, I guess. But at least I didn't leave the meeting. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I don't know what to say. it's like this basic dichotomy between, and Ben and Melanie, you mentioned the agility aspect. I see that often as well, talking to various schools, and of course, being at the University of St. Gallen. We have a long tradition. We have quite a clear objective, and turning the ship is not something that happens quickly at most large institutions with a long history. So yeah, I just always wonder, with the future of education, having recently attended a summit in Paris on Thursday last week, I'm a little bit concerned about the future of education and what this means for institutions that aren't very agile, mine included, but many others. I would say most institutions aren't incredibly agile.
But you are at the same time, Adam. You might not be in, let's say, the traditional sense of being agile, but when it comes to new trends, like you're going to create certifications, you're going to create like maybe non-degree granting certificates, but you are actually one of the game changer when it comes to open or custom program. And there is a few schools, and that give you this agility because it's finding the proper skill sets and competences that you need to deliver to the students. So I would actually disagree with you because I think that you're agile. Like what the market is not allowing you to do is to say, oh, we're going to create a 1-year diploma that is going to teach that, and like, then you need to get it certified by the states or your canton, and then you need to make sure that it doesn't like throw feathers at the international accreditation body. But you are super agile in some aspects, so it's how to use those aspects to actually show them forward and enhance the reputation of the school. I think that would be the quite interesting part.
Thank you. You know how when going for an accreditation, you have to demonstrate your reputation. And so I'm wondering, and that was my question earlier, about what do you put forward? Do you only put forward your rankings, your accreditations, or do you have a little something else that you manage to put as a, I don't know, like an argument on your case?
I think all of the above. And if you can showcase the impact that you have, like if you're, let me give you the example of a school with whom I was speaking to recently in India. They organize every year some events for giving access to education to Indian girls. And they have what they call the Kanyathon. And this is really fantastic. Like it started 10 years ago with a few runners. Now they have like, I think 5,000 people that are running in India and that are willing to give some of their money, some of their time. And then they're sponsoring village in order to give education to women in the remote part of India. Like this is something that they need to put forward because this is really the heart of what they're trying to achieve. So being able to showcase the impact, and again, like all of you are not St. Gallen, all of you are not EHL, but you're going to have a tremendous impact. So being able to showcase your impact is what is really important.
I think it's interesting point talking about impact because, for example, in AACSB, that's a whole standard demonstrating your impact. But let's say in EFMD, they're asking you to demonstrate your national standing and reputation. And so having impact, we haven't actually mentioned it recently. I see that Marine is here. Marine, would you like to come on screen for a quick question? I don't want to put you in the spotlight here, but maybe you're busy doing something else. But it would be interesting.
She has a cardboard picture of herself.
Yes. Well, it's very gray. No, probably busy. But it would be interesting to see if ACSB considers impact as part of the reputation of the school. And I know that ACSB doesn't have that much of a focus on reputation as EFMD does. But I think it's an interesting way of looking at reputation through impact. Does any of you use impact to demonstrate reputation? Maybe, maybe not.
A lot of schools do. one of the best example in France, if we go to the French market, is Institut Mines Télécom Business School. They were the first one, and it was under the leadership of their former dean, Denis Guibard, that they decided to say, look, we want to showcase how impactful we are. And there was not many impact frameworks. So they decided to use the Times Higher Education impact ranking. So they went in as a standalone business school, which is quite rare. There might be 5 or 6. Usually it's the university that go in and being able to showcase themselves. And they are using that. And it's really interesting because they actually, from what they learn by doing the framework of the impact ranking, they realign completely their strategy. And then they did standard 9 of ASCSB based on that. So it's actually quite interesting because they decided that they wanted to have an impact. They knew that they were different, that they could not compete with the top 5 in the market. So they actually decided to approach the picture completely differently, and they're doing a great job at it at the moment. To give one example.
True. And also some schools, smaller ones, and I'm thinking in France, mostly the IAE, using BSIS as a reputation tool. Marine, now we see you. So I think also schools, depending on the type of schools, they leverage different things, different strengths or different accreditations or recognitions, because it caters to one specific public. And I know that for IAE, I've seen a lot of them really make use of BSIS label, whereas a lot of other triple accredited schools don't use it that much. They do it. They use BSIS as an argument demonstrating impact. But what we see in IAE is that they actually make little charts and everything based on their BSIS number, and that's how they communicate their reputation and their impact. So it can happen in so many forms.
Yeah, but they do that because they don't have anything else. They don't have accreditation. If you go, what is an IAE for the non-French? The IAE are the public business schools. So French university have business schools, and they're called IAE. And most of the schools that you will know are standalone business schools, but there is also, I think, in the vicinity of 40 that are publicly owned. Those schools are not internationally accredited or ranked. There is a few that are EQUIS and ASCSB. There is more and more that are actually wanting to showcase that they can compete with the rest of the market that are entering this process. But what they want to showcase is to their stakeholder, which is their university, how impactful they are, and to be able to see, look, I think the way they're using it is to go to the president of the university by saying, look, you give us a budget of X million, but the impact that we have on the university, on the school is of X, because that's one of the area that BSIS can give them. So it's all about to show their relevance toward their stakeholder, and for them, their key stakeholder is their university, because they're the one that are funding the whole process. So it's again, it depends on the reputation that you want to have and who you want to talk to, and what they want to do is to talk to the president of the university by saying, look, for every euro, I think the University of Strasbourg did that, and they had an analysis to showcase that for every single euro that the university was funding in the business school, that had an impact of, I think, 30 euro in the Alsace region. So it was a great way to say, look, it's great. We're making something happen in the region. So being able to showcase that is quite important, and that goes toward the reputation.
Of course, you don't have to demonstrate the same things to your different stakeholders. So it's interesting to know what's important to your type of stakeholders, your main stakeholders. Okay, time for questions. We're closing in towards the end. Thomas?
Yes, hello. It's a pleasure to participate to this webinar. Hi, Benjamin.
Hello, Thomas.
Yeah, hello. Salut. Just a few words. I mean, I've been in many business schools, including some of, who we spoke about just a few minutes ago. But today I belong to the University of Lorraine, so this is an IAE. And in the past, I was in Belgium in the University of Liège with the same. Just to rebound on this, when you're the dean and director general of the Faculty of Business and Economics, it could be in France, it could be everywhere. I think it's generally the case everywhere in the world, except specifically in France, which is more an exception. Well, you have many reasons to go discuss with the vice provost or the rector to be accredited, being with ACSB or with EQUIS and the EFMD. And the rector can be really interested for many reasons, For instance, he needs his or her business school to be close to the corporate world, and the business school generally is the way the university, especially when it's very research intensive, could be very connected, well, locally or beyond, with the alumni and so on, with the corporate world. Just want to react maybe to the significance of reputation. It seems to me we didn't speak so much about the strategy, and I think it's beyond marketing. It's really reflecting on a strategic position. And it's, on one side, and I think it's also about the recognition. I think the word recognition has a very strong meaning. I mean, internationally with the accreditations, but nationally also. I mean, if you want to attract, international students, they have to be sure that they can trust you on the national recognition of your degrees, for instance. Well, just one good reason will be getting a visa to be able to work in the country. And it's going to be a very, very tough debate if you take France, for instance, in the future. I think this is reputation is really a very, very strategic issue. And having a strong brand is important, not only for visibility, but also, to find some content, some, strategic advantage, distinction. And this is a very, very, very difficult topic today. Take ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT what is, an excellent business school in France, for instance. You will see that the wording, if you don't know the name, it's going to be very difficult to know, which business school will be there, because you have 20 of them, which could be aligned with the kind of things you will get from this IA. So it's, it's one thing to be visible, it's one thing to have a reputation. And I think it's a key work on a very, very strategic level to be able to be distinctive in some ways. And I leave you on this.
I think it's you're spot on. Like, depending of the school, like if you are Said Business School in Oxford University, like everybody know Oxford University, and I think Oxford is a stronger brand than Said. So maybe you're going to actually play the Oxford brand before playing the Said brand. So then if you are a standalone school, like you don't have that, how are you going to actually approach that? The strategy is so depending on the school, on where they want to be and what they want to achieve. But, it's interesting because I know where you have been and which school you were at. But if you look at a lot of the universities at the moment, one of the key elements that they need is because the states are pushing them to be visible through the ranking. So the states, and the French state is one, the British government is doing the same, is pushing their university to be ranked in the top 500. And if they are in the top 500, then they get more funding, they get more things. The same is true in India. If you're not ranked as one of the top 100 in the THE and QS ranking for university, it's kind of harder to actually get access to set up a campus in India. So the government are actually using also the reputation. So it's a never-ending story or a snowball effect of how do you want to drive your strategy in order to get what you want. I mean, maybe you're purely research-driven school, so what you care about is your research, but at the same time, you need to have students. So it's having a deep dive on what you stand for and making sure that you can align with what you stand for, but at the same time, getting the students that you need in order to cover your costs. So it's quite interesting to actually, and there is a lot of great example at the moment of schools that are tackling it differently, but it's really interesting.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Apparently not. Anything more to add, Ben?
Marin has a question.
Ben.
No, it is a very interesting conversation, and I like the link you made between impact and reputation. When we released the 2020 standards with more of a focus on impact, we actually don't use the word reputation at all in the standards, but a lot of schools were applauding, were super happy that they had something to say about impact. And then came the first reports to write. They were like, okay, where to start? We have impact on so many things. And that brought back to the idea of a lot of schools to the idea of the niche, of the specialization, what they stand for, what they are known for. And from that, building a societal impact sort of strategy within the larger strategy. And that created this new approach to impact strategy reputation for the school. So it's sort of all put together. It was interesting to see the struggles of many schools, not the ones here, of course, in this room, to think of what are we known for? What do we want to be known for? And that's part of the reputation idea.
Let me ask you one question, Marin. Sorry, one question. If I had to ask one question, it would be to you, and it would be that one. What do you say to schools that say that they cannot be agile because of international accreditation?
And we have 3 minutes.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, and agility is actually one of the guiding principles of AACSG standards. So yeah, I mean, I know why you're asking this, and it was, I think, it was spot on what you said about the schools that are maybe in a different tier, but are smaller, don't have the international sort of ranking or accreditation reputation, but can move and be more flexible quickly, and that's an advantage because they don't have the frameworks of accreditation that may constrain them.
Yes, especially that strategic plan. I come from a small school that was very agile, and when they started getting ready for international accreditation, then there came that whole question about strategy, where you have to think forward. And when you're, as a small school, very agile, and you're used to making decisions as the opportunities are coming, it's more difficult actually to strategize about things. And suddenly it's like you have, one big lead ball attached to your foot. Like, okay, now we cannot move that easily. And that's all because of international accreditations. But it's also very structuring.
We are blamed for many things. I understand that completely. But on the other hand,
specifically for the weather, Marin, the weather is your fault. I'm sorry to say.
Amsterdam weather. What do you want?
But one maybe sort of myth that I hear a lot is that once you start the accreditation process, especially when you start the process, you have to stop everything you're doing. You don't launch any new programs, don't change anything in your strategy. Well, actually, there again, and I know Thomas was part of that committee some years ago. The initial accreditation committee, they are peers. They know what it is to run a business schools, and they know that you cannot just stand still for many, many years. And they would actually find it odd if you're not trying out things and maybe failing on some things. But as long as you're transparent and you're linking back to your strategy and your mission, and there's a rationale behind it, it wouldn't be held against the school.
And that's the final word. Just thank you.
Courtesy of ATSD.
So thank you for attending this webinar. Thank you, Marine. Thank you, Natalie, for the speakers. Thank you, Ben, especially for being here today, despite your very sick state. We will meet you again. So next month will be, I don't have the date yet, but kind of mid-January. And our theme will be activities of HEADway quality and accreditation, where we'll present all the consultants and talk about what we do and how we help schools and, you know, type of missions that we work on, kind of meet who we are. And following months, new guests. So thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your
Thank
day.
you, everybody.
Happy holidays, if we don't talk. Bye-bye. Thanks again.